The film opens in an alternate universe where everyone tells the truth all the time, no matter what. People say exactly what they think and feel, creating ridiculous situations. It does not matter if they are regular people, businessmen, or even the president. The narrator introduces Mark Bellison, a man seen as a failure, who is about to change everything by becoming the first person to tell a lie. In the opening scene, Mark arrives at Anna's house for their date. Anna immediately says he interrupted her while she was masturbating. She complains that he came too early and tells him to wait while she finishes. Feeling awkward, Mark admits he will now think about it nonstop, and he is nervous because he can only afford a cheap restaurant. He confesses that he will probably lose his job soon, has no savings, and is already in his late 40s with little to show for his life. When Anna comes downstairs, she bluntly says she is not attracted to him. Used to that kind of honesty, Mark sighs, and they leave for their first date. At the restaurant, the waiter is just as direct as everyone else. He says Anna is far out of Mark's league, and even asks if she is his daughter. Embarrassed, Mark thanks the waiter and tells him to leave. He then asks Anna about herself. She confidently says she has a high-paying job and that her life is going well. While they eat, Anna gets a call from her mother and openly says Mark is unattractive, does not earn much, and is not someone she would ever want to kiss or sleep with. Even after the awkward evening, Mark still thanks Anna at the end of the night for spending time with him. The story then shifts to lecture films, a movie studio where a man is presenting Napoleon's story. Mark arrives and is introduced as a screenplay writer. The presenter honestly describes him as one of the company's least successful employees and says he is close to being fired. Mark goes to his office, where his co-worker Shelley mocks his poor track record. Soon after, Mark's boss Anthony fires him for writing a boring screenplay about the Black Plague. While still there, Mark reads an email from Anna. In it, she says she enjoyed his company, but is not interested in him because of his looks, finances, and social status, which she sees as important in a partner. Shelley makes things worse by saying the best part of the email is the section insulting Mark's appearance. As Mark leaves, Shelley and Brad keep mocking him. Brad calls him a loser who never stops losing. Later, Mark visits a nursing home called A Sad Place for Hopeless Old People to see his mother, Martha Bellison. He tells her he was fired and complains that both come from generations of unsuccessful people. When Mark gets home, his landlord asks for the rent. Mark explains his money problems, but the landlord gives him one day to pack up and leave. With no other option, Mark goes to the bank to close his account and withdraw everything he has left. When the computer system temporarily crashes, the teller asks Mark how much money is in his account. Nervous but curious, Mark says he has $800, even though he knows the real amount is only $300. Once the system comes back, the teller sees the numbers do not match, but assumes the mistake came from the computer and hands him the $800 anyway. Stunned, Mark realizes he has just spoken the first lie. Using the extra money, Mark pays his rent and returns to his room, thrilled by what he has discovered.
Come on.
He tells his friends what happened, but they cannot understand lying because no one in their world has ever done it before. To test this power, Mark keeps changing his name, and his friends believe him every time. Amazed, Mark asks them what they would do if they could do anything at all. His friend Greg says he would have sex with a girl. That gives Mark an idea, and he decides to test his ability further. Mark approaches a random woman on the street and lies to her, saying the world will end unless she has sex with him immediately. Terrified, the woman drags a bewildered Mark into a motel room. Before anything happens, Mark starts feeling uneasy and pretends to call NASA. After the fake call, he says NASA has confirmed the world is no longer in danger, so they do not need to sleep together after all. Later, Mark meets up with his friends and asks what they would do if they had unlimited possibilities, as long as it did not involve being with a woman. When none of them can think of anything, they ask him the same question. Without hesitation, Mark says he would take all the money in the world. Not long after, Mark and his friend Greg go for a drive, with Greg drunk behind the wheel. A police officer pulls them over and begins arresting Greg for drunk driving, but Mark calmly tells the officer that Greg is not drunk. The officer believes him immediately, apologizes, and lets them go. Afterward, they head to a casino, where Mark decides to try roulette. He places his bet on number 28, but the ball lands on 35. Thinking quickly, Mark points at something imaginary and shouts for everyone to look. While the crowd is distracted, he slides his chips onto 35 and claims the win. The dealer does not notice the trick and pays him. By using the same move again and again, Mark cheats his way to a fortune and leaves the casino rich. Later, Mark runs into his friend Frank in an elevator. Frank is clearly upset and admits that he is planning to end his life. Mark quickly lies and tells him that everything will be okay and that he does not need to go through with it. Frank believes him right away, decides to delay his plan, and agrees to spend time with Mark that evening. From then on, Mark starts using his new ability to make people feel better and improve their lives. One night, Mark calls Anna and asks her out again. He tells her he has changed and urges her to meet him so she can see it for herself. Anna reluctantly agrees to give him one last chance. After the call, Mark turns on the TV and sees a lecture film segment praising Brad for his writing. Feeling inspired, Mark sits at his desk and begins writing a new story using his ability to lie. To make it appear genuine, he pours tea over the pages so they look like an ancient manuscript. The next day, Mark takes his historical script to his boss Anthony at Lecture Film Studios. He claims he found the writing in an old chest buried in the desert. The story describes a giant spaceship crashing in Babylon, which instantly grabs Anthony's attention. Mark reads it aloud and explains that aliens saved Earth in the 14th century. He adds that the alien king erased humanity's memory of it and predicted that centuries later, Mark Bellison would uncover the truth after being fired by his awful boss, Anthony, and mocked by Shelley and Brad. The script ends with Mark predicting that lecture films will turn the story into a blockbuster, making him rich and famous. The employees cheer enthusiastically, and Anthony eagerly orders Mark to begin production. Meanwhile, Brad is furious with jealousy. That night, Mark takes Anna to an expensive restaurant for their date. She congratulates him on selling his script and asks about his family. Mark explains that his father is a drunk and that his mother lives in a nursing home, but he plans to move her out the next day and buy her a mansion. Mark then asks Anna if she would consider spending her life with him now that he is rich and successful. Although Anna is impressed by his achievements, she rejects him once again because of his appearance. She says she does not want her future children to inherit traits like being overweight or having a turned-up nose. Heartbroken by Anna's rejection, Mark sits alone drinking until he gets a call saying his mother, Martha, is in critical condition. He rushes to the hospital, where Martha confesses that she is afraid to die because she thinks death is only an endless void of nothingness. Devastated, Mark lies to comfort her and says that after death, she will be young again, happy, and surrounded by the people she loves in her favorite place. Martha smiles peacefully and dies, comforted by his words. The hospital staff overhears what Mark tells her and becomes fascinated. They ask him to explain more about what happens after death, but Mark is too overwhelmed by grief, so he leaves the hospital with Anna. The next morning, they wake up leaning on each other's shoulders after falling asleep together. They exchange soft smiles, sharing a quiet, intimate moment. When Mark gets home, he is shocked to find a huge crowd gathered outside his house. Confused, he pushes through as people call his name and beg him to explain what happens after death. Turning on the TV, Mark sees a news report about the crowd outside his home. Anna arrives and asks what he told his mother. Mark explains everything, and to his surprise, Anna believes him immediately. She encourages him to tell the people outside more. Still unsure but ready, Mark writes a message for the crowd. When he steps outside, he reads it aloud. He introduces the idea of a man in the sky who knows everything. Mark says this man gives the dead mansions, endless ice cream, and reunions with loved ones in the afterlife. But he also warns that anyone who commits 3 bad deeds in life will be sent to a terrible place instead. Some people in the crowd angrily blame the man in the sky for their suffering, but Mark assures them he is also responsible for all the good things in their lives. When they ask how he knows this, Mark lies again and says the man in the sky told him himself. In the following days, the media is flooded with headlines like NASA searches for the man in the sky, productivity falls as people dream of afterlife mansions, and man in the sky blamed for miracles and disasters. At the same time, Mark submits a new Black Plague film to his boss, Anthony. The movie becomes a huge hit, turning Mark into a rich and famous man almost overnight. One day, while sitting with Anna in a park, Mark tells her she is the sweetest person he has ever met. Anna admits she loves being around him, and as they lean in to kiss, she suddenly pulls away. She imagines their future children and blurts out that she cannot stop thinking about fat kids with snub noses. Even though she confesses she loves him, she still cannot get over her fears about genetics. Later, Anna visits Mark's mansion to give him a birthday card. She tells him she is going on a date with Brad and plans to sleep with him, which immediately alarms Mark. He persuades Anna not to have sex before marriage. When Mark opens the card, he finds a coupon from Anna for sharing a bed together. Anna jokingly says that since they are not married, she cannot break the rule. Mark awkwardly replies that it would be a shame to waste the coupon. Soon after, Brad arrives to take Anna to dinner. During their date, Brad brags about his success while insulting Mark's looks. Later that night, Anna watches Mark's TV interview, but her mother changes the channel and dismisses Mark as someone who will never be good enough, even if he really talks to the man in the sky. Anna argues that Mark makes her feel special, but her mother insists Mark will always be a loser and that any children with him would be the same. She pressures Anna to stay with Brad. Weeks pass, and Anna eventually visits Mark again, finding him messy with long hair and a beard. She gives him an invitation to her wedding to Brad and asks him to come. Mark begs her not to marry Brad, but Anna says she feels forced to choose a genetically perfect partner so she can have the children she has always wanted. On the wedding day, Mark wakes up and finds Greg in a suit holding a razor. Encouraged, Mark shaves his beard and goes to the ceremony. During the vows, the priest asks whether anyone believes they can offer Anna a better genetic match. The room falls silent until Mark stands and says Anna is happier with him. Brad challenges him, asking if that is true. Why is Anna standing at the altar with him? He then dares Mark to ask the man in the sky what is best for Anna. After hesitating, Mark finally admits there is no man in the sky. He confesses he made the whole story up to comfort his dying mother. Anna then asks why he did not lie to make her marry him. Mark answers that a lie would mean nothing if it were not real. Overcome with emotion, Anna finally accepts her true feelings. She declares that she wants little fat kids with snub noses, and Mark smiles happily when he hears it. In the final scene, Mark and Anna are eating breakfast with their young son, who is adorably chubby and has a snub nose. Anna is also visibly pregnant with their second child, completing their happy family. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.